And some Vanguard Life. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki, and let's go straight to the front pages of the daily, starting with Vanguard. Vanguard leading story says hunger, poverty, now security threats. That's according to NSA and CDS. Federal government kicks as United States issues security advisory in Abuja. You can see that on page 27. Lastly, on the front page of Vanguard, on page 26, Israel, Iran agree complete and total ceasefire. That's according to Trump. And that's all on Vanguard newspaper. Away from there, we'll move to the Punch. The Punch latest story says Tinubu's Electricity Act. 7 states take charge of power regulation. And the second story says factional fires, PDP governors meet INEC amid and neck tensions. You can see that story on page 2. Now let's move to The Guardian. The Guardian leading story says NUC, flood process false disclosure, rocker courses, varsities accreditations. You can see that story on page 6. And here there's an infograph showing the academic content, staffing, physical facilities, funding, library, employers rating, all inside the Guardian newspaper. On page 6, Abuja safe. No cause for alarm. Federal government assures amid United States travel warning. Insecurity. Tinubu urged to investigate alleged complicity of security chiefs. Casualties from Plateau killings rise to 22. PDP chiefs dismiss ADA coalition as a weak attempt to oust Tinubu. On news page 4, June 12, Yoruba group accused Lamido Ononuga of distorting history. And on Panorama page 2, EFCC arrest ex-NNPC chiefs over alleged $7.2 billion fraud. African leaders, activists injure political apathy on bad leadership. Lastly, on the Guardian newspaper, reactions at trail demolition of Award Church massacre victims cenotaph. You can see that on news page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies. Join us after the break for a brief analysis of some of the stories. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is Today to Do Some Vanguard Live. My name is Dambola Ogunshaki, and joining me to analyze some of the stories on the front pages is Mr. Dayo Akintobi. Publisher will look for you today, like it today, Keja Diary today. Good morning, Mr. Dayo.
Good morning, Damilola. Good morning to all of you.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Now, the National Secretary Advisor, Malam Nuru Badu, and Chief of Defense Staff CDS said yesterday that hunger and poverty are the catalysts that fueling security, violence, insecurity, violence, and social disintegration in the country. And this came on the day that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu declared that Nigeria's agriculture had begun as he commissioned 2,000 tractors for nationwide deployment. What do you think about this two events?
Well, without a doubt, hunger makes people do desperate things, and poverty also has a lot of socio-economic implications. So I don't doubt that there's some linkage between terrorism, banditry, all these social ills, and poverty. But I think to categorically state that that is the primary cause of responsibility, I think that just begs the question, because I think there's more to it than just poverty and hunger, because the people who are poor and hungry who don't resort to terrorism. So it's not a causative factor. It doesn't automatically lead to violence. But there will be some people who are negatively impacted by poverty and hunger who may lean in that direction, but doesn't mean everybody is so inclined. So I would say there are greater factors, there are deeper factors. There's ideology, there's religion, there's ethnicity, there's land disputes, and various issues that's fueling the problems we have security wise. Um, and if it's the National Security Advisor and the Chief of Defense Staff who's saying this, I look at it and I say, well, but you're part of this administration. To what extent do you have a responsibility to look at whatever the factors are? If the factors are poverty and hunger, what are you guys doing in terms of your role in the administration to try and curb those problems? It's not enough to just talk about it, but being a part of the administration, even if Um, you're not directly in the Ministry of Finance or the Ministry of Agri or any of those, but you're a part of the administration. So if you believe that that is what is the cause of this problem, then you should be trying to do something about it within your own little area of responsibility. So I'm not too sure. And when you look at, you also mentioned that yesterday President Tinubu was commissioning 2,000 tractors. To try and help boost productivity in our agricultural sector. Now, most Nigerian farmers are subsistence farmers. What we mean by subsistence, they grow just enough to feed themselves. And if there's any little bit left over, maybe they can exchange it for something else that they need. But only very few farmers in Nigeria are big enough to the point of being able to be commercially viable. And by that, I mean supplying the markets, exporting to overseas, and getting foreign exchange. Most small Nigerian farmers are just for subsistence. So this idea of mechanized farming, bringing in tractors, bringing in bulldozers, supplying fertilizer and things like that, is to help people move from subsistence farming to commercial farming to such a point whereby we'll be able to produce enough. There's this thing called food security, whereby a country wants to be able to feed itself and have enough extra left over to export. We import a lot of our food. For example, wheat. I understand that 90% of the wheat we consume in this country is imported. And now, once the Ukraine and Russia war broke out, which affected supplies of wheat across the world, because I think Ukraine is the largest producer supplies of wheat across the world, because I think Ukraine is the largest, automatically created problems for us, automatically made food expensive. Remember, we're already battling with the notion of farmer herder crisis, where farmers can't go to the farm because of all of the problems in terms of violence. There was also floods in 2022 that affected many areas in the north, that farmers lost all their crops. So when you add all those things together, it has a negative impact on our ability to feed ourselves and produce food security. So I think that was what yesterday was all about. And I look at the comments by the CDS and the NSA about poverty, and I think, yes, there is a linkage to some extent, but I wouldn't say it is exclusively the reason for violence in Nigeria.
So do you think that the renewed open agricultural program will actually work, especially with the insecurity going on in the country? Because many farmers are afraid to go to their farm.
Yes, see, is which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you solve the insecurity problem first so that farmers can go and farm, or do you empower farmers to go and farm before you solve the insecurity problem? Well, like you said, farmers are concerned about going back to the farm because in many places, uh, terrorists and bandits have overrun the areas where they used to cultivate their crops. Then, of course, there's still the herder problem because cows are still roaming freely. They are going to farmlands to graze and feed themselves. So that's still a problem for farmers as well, is that they have to contend with this issue of trespassing on their land and destruction of their crops, or consumption of their crops by herds. So we have to take one step at a time. And I think it's a right idea to try and create a more enabling environment for farming at a commercial level. And the way to do that, of course, is through mechanization. How will it work? Well, there's always the Nigerian factor, but that shouldn't inhibit us from at least taking a step in the right direction. There's always things about competence, about funding. How many of those farmers, I don't know by what means the tractors are going to be distributed. Will they have to be making payments for them? I know they are not giving them free because it costs billions to buy 2,000 tractors. Were not cheap. So it's not like they're giving them to the farmers free. What criteria will they use to distribute them? Is it friends of the party in power who will be given preference to collect the tractor? Or is it those who are meritorious, who have proven that they have the capacity to use these things productively to increase their yield, their crop yield? So to what extent will corruption play a role? I mentioned financing. How about competence, skills, ability? Um, all those things will depend. The success of the program will depend on all those factors. And when you look at the way things are in Nigeria about maintenance, the tractors will need repair, they will need servicing, they will need engine oil, they will need spare parts. Have all those things been taken into consideration? Or did you just bring 2,000 tractors, dump them on these poor farmers who don't know how to operate them, who can't maintain them, After 2 years, you go back and you look, and the whole program has crashed. Will it be business as usual, or will this be it would be turning the corner with this program for the better in terms of a maintenance culture for those tractors and all other means of mechanized farming?
Okay, let's talk about the ranching. 11 states seems to have adopted this ranching method and are ready to allocate, land to the others. And do you think this will either way solve the conflict between the farmer and others? Do you think it will stop the clash between them?
Well, see, everybody knows that the quickest way to resolve this problem is to have dedicated land for cows to graze. Look, cows are herbivores. They eat grass. They've got to find the grass somewhere. If they stay in one place, they eat all the grass, there's no more food for them. So they have to keep moving. And where is grass? The quickest place to find grass. And where is grass? The quickest place to find grass and any kind of vegetation is usually in the hinterland, in the get enough area. Where the problem, you start talking about states giving land to herders just so that their cows don't go on a rampage and eat other people's. Uh, new good the government is doing. So why take to market to make a profit? So they are profit generating enterprises. They are entrepreneurs. They are capitalists, just like every other business person. So why do they merit? So it looks like it's extortion. That at the end of the day, if you don't give us dedicated land, we will allow our herds to run riot and pillage, damage private people's farms. So it looks like blackmail or extortion, whereby if you don't give us this land to keep our cows, then innocent farmers will suffer. So some people say, no, that's not right. They should buy their ranch. They should buy the land. They should pay for it as a cost of doing business, like we all pay. Every other business in Nigeria pays. Why should they have special privileges? And part of the reason that this has become an issue is because the immediate past administration seemed to be lackadaisical about trying to to uh, draw the line on herder misbehavior. The immediate past administration wasn't different when the herders and when they were pillaging the farms. The government didn't take a strong enough stand against it, so that gave the herders a lot of confidence, and so they're able to make these demands, and well, even if they're not making the demands, the states are seeing it as a solution because they've not been able to curb the activity of the herders. So in and of itself, ranching is good. In You go to America, you go to UK, you see them. It's a large amount of land, several hectares, and they've got a long fence around it, and you see the cows peacefully grazing. Those animals are very peaceful. They don't disturb anybody. It's when they don't get food that they begin to get agitated. But as long as they have open space, lots of drinking water, lots of grass, they're very peaceful animals. So they don't go on their own. They don't go rampaging and running amok anywhere. They will stay within that corral that's been fenced around them. They will stay there as long as they have enough food and enough water, enough fresh air, enough place to rest. No problem for them at all. So it's a good idea, ranching. Nothing against it. But what the general discontent is the way we have gone about it in Nigeria, which is saying that the states should give the land free to them, which is not fair to other business people.
Well, there are reports that youths, in rural areas now, they are no longer choosing agriculture. So, what do you think is preventing them from this, and how can incentive be structured in order to overcome this?
Well, because agriculture historically has been tough labor, get your hands dirty, out in the hot sun sweating, and then the yields are not quick. You plant yam today, you don't harvest it for the next 9 months. the youth in Nigeria of today with content creation. Everybody's a content. I ask myself, what is content creation? Every CV I see says I'm a content creator. You are youth, Damilola. Can you tell me what is content creation in the Nigerian context? Because everybody's a content creator. So I don't understand what it means. But the average Nigerian youth would rather be a content creator than a farmer. And that's what the president was saying yesterday, is that he's going to make agriculture in Nigeria sexy. And by that, I didn't appreciate the word he used, but I think what he was trying to say was make it attractive to the youth. And part of it is by mechanizing it, for example, as opposed to using a hoe in the hot sun and be digging in sand that is packed tight. And in fact, you see some of those farmers, they have rippling muscles because they are constantly hammering and banging and digging. So the president is saying, if we can apply technology, tractors, bulldozers, crop dusters, all kind, I don't know the names of farm implements, but mechanical devices, if we can introduce them into the agricultural process and reduce the element of labor. In fact, when we were growing up in Nigeria, when a criminal is convicted and sentenced to a term of imprisonment, the judge will usually say, with hard labor. Do you know what that with hard labor means? It means go out in the farm, go and dig. So it's in our psyche that the notion of farming is hard labor. In this day and age of technology, your smartphone can do a million things. You can make more. You can sit here and be doing remote work in America and be paid in dollars. Who wants to go and do hard labor? There's no youth in Nigeria today that you tell about going to farm who will think about, I'd rather do that than work from my smartphone. However, there are new practices now. For example, there's something called hydroponic farming where you grow tomatoes in a greenhouse. You don't even have to grow them. You grow them inside. You get little pots and you grow them inside without. You don't have to go out in any farm in your backyard. You put a little greenhouse like a tent. You can grow tomatoes hydroponically. So you don't even have to really go through this hard labor anymore. So in addition to technology, in addition to new techniques to grow food, the notion is that farming is no longer a dirty job. It's no longer a poor man's job. It's no longer that idea I talked about earlier, subsistence. You can only just feed yourself from it. You can't really make money from it. So where the administration is trying to take it to now is to where it can become modern, technologically based, profitable, that you can make big money from it. And your turnaround times are now shorter to where it's not like you grow something and you're waiting forever and ever before you can see your money. So that's where we are.
But this in this tractor distribution and vocational training is currently tied to this present administration's their old program. So do you think they will ensure continuation regardless of political turnover?
You can't ensure continuity in anything. That's the sad part about these electoral cycles, is that each time you take a break in an administration, you do elections and another administration comes in, you run the big risk of the fact that some or all of their programs will be discontinued and the new man will go off in his own direction. That's always a risk. But if you have established something with a solid enough foundation and is already making a difference and is popular with the electorate or popular with the people, it'd be very difficult to cancel it. But if it's just kind of chugging along slowly and people are not seeing the benefits, I mean, if in the next 2 years before we do 2027 election, if in the next 2 years, we begin to see the gains from agriculture. Say, for example, now the tractors help to be able to till the land, to be able to grow tomatoes faster. Tomatoes are redder, they are bigger, they are more nutritious, and they are in the market for half of the price that it is selling for today. And the government does its communication and media work well to communicate to the people that the gains you are seeing in the tomatoes in the market is as a result of that program when we imported the 2000 tractors. So people will suddenly realize the advantage of it. They will be enamored of the program. The next man coming in will have a difficulty not continuing it because it's beneficial to the people. Anything you do that's beneficial to the people and that the people embrace is usually very difficult for even a different administration to roll back or discontinue.
Yeah, well, conflict, it has displaced many and has contributed to this food instability in the country, especially with the recent killings in the north. So, do you think I am these people who have been displayed? Do you think there's a way they should be included in this scheme as a way of as a part of peace and recovery efforts?
Well, you look at like Benue, they say Benue is the bread basket of the food
Food
basket
basket
of
of
Nigeria,
Nigeria.
and that's where all our yams and all that. And you look at what happened in Yawata just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, where 200 innocent people were killed. And you look at it and you say, all the other people in surrounding villages there, they've all fled. In fact, the number of people who've run away are more than the people who are killed or maimed. So you ask yourself, um, how do we resettle these people? How do we get them back into a normal way of life? Get them back to farming? Do you include them in so? I think they require a special intervention fund. It can't be part of this larger effort in agriculture. I think, and I believe it was said. I think either the Tortive or the governor of Benue, when the president visited the affected communities in Yawata. Well, he didn't get to Yawata. I think it was in Makodi. But when he went to um, Benue State last week on a courtesy visit to sympathize with them for what happened, I believe one of the speakers mentioned it there and then that we need a special intervention fund, that there has to be a special program set up to uh, um, deal with the by this violence, and by them having been displaced, it has affected the ability of the country to provide food security for itself. And so something must be done drastic that's different from the general program, something specialized. Of course, it will involve money, it will involve land, it will involve counselors, it will involve, there's many aspects to aid when a disaster happens to make the people whole again. But the federal government is up to it, I'm sure.
Hmm. All right, let's move away from there. Power sector operators and ESPA, they've raised concerns, expressed fears, and projected opportunities as some states assumed responsibility for regulating the electricity markets within their various domains. Seven states, they now control their electricity, including Ekiti, Moyo, and others, and Lagos, Ogun, and they're also expected to complete their transition between June and September. What do you think about this? Do you think it's an improvement in the electricity
What do we really want as Nigerians? We confuse
sector?
ourselves so much. On the one hand, we're always crying about restructuring, devolution of power. We want decentralization. Let the states and local governments and regions, let them have more power, more autonomy to run their own affairs. And then when the government starts doing something in that direction, all we do is complain and express fear. So now government has decentralized electricity, just like the Supreme Court also gave local governments autonomy to run their own affairs. All those things are moving us in the direction of decentralization, which is supposed to be better. So now they are saying that, look, let the states generate their own power, or let them regulate generation of their own power, distribution, and all that. So it's not a centralized thing from Abuja. Here, you can have more local control. The distribution companies can be more effectively monitored by state governments. And 7 states have completed, another 5 or so are almost ready to complete. And next thing is there's complaints. They say, oh, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the funding. I read when I was reading some of the complaints from some people, especially, the bottom line is this: whenever you attempt to make wholesale change, there will always be some pushback, because there are people who are currently enjoying the present structure, benefiting from the present structure. Look, NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, they are the 800-pound gorilla, the behemoth that oversees the entire monolithic structure. So when they now decentralize, all the people who are chopping from NERC, all the people who are benefiting from the staff, their contractors, their suppliers, all those people will become obsolete or will become redundant. So there will be pushback from them that, you are taking away our power, you are taking away our stomach infrastructure, all that is going to go. So there will be some degree of pushback. But one of the things I read, for example, as to the complaint, is that states will not know how to set tariffs. This band
Yes.
city problem we're having now. They say states, those individual states will not know how to set tariff. And I asked the question, I said, you Who said the person who said the band people and say, how did they know how to set tariff? Did they not go and learn somewhere? So what stops the states too from going to go and learn in the same place? And what is rocket science about setting tariff? Don't you just look at how much the cost of generating the electricity, transmitting it and distributing it, then you divide it by how many households are. It's going to be a simple mathematical formula, but they're using that as a big deal. Like, oh, in the whole world, there are only 2,000 people who know how to set tariff. And I say, what's the big deal about setting tariff? Don't transporters set fifth to car? How do Okada people determine, or Keke Napep people determine how much to charge you from for one drop from one bus stop to the next bus? So how are prices set generally in every sector? It can't be rocket science. So I think these are just sour grapes from people who have a fear that their their point of deriving benefits is threatened. I think they're just afraid for their own future and their own economic well-being is why they're saying. But I can't see any disadvantages. Sure, there'll be growing pains anytime you restructure something and you're starting from scratch under a new dispensation, a new way of doing things. There'll be growing pains. Yeah, there'll be mistakes in the beginning. Yeah, but the overall idea is totally beneficial. So you don't, because of fear of failure, not do the right thing that's going to move you in the right direction. So you go ahead and you do it, and you learn as you go, and you correct it. When you make errors, in fact, the more you learn from your mistakes, the better you become. So you don't shy away from doing the right thing simply because there may be pitfalls along the way. Life is a pitfall. The whole living life on a daily basis, we learn from mistakes, we pick ourselves up when we fall, and we move forward. It makes us stronger and better. Basis, we learn from mistakes, we pick ourselves up when we fall, and we move forward. It makes us stronger and better.
Do you think the states they have the technical and financial calculate their
That's the truth. No, they don't. Doesn't. Transmission of them after they privatize NEPA, because all the people that didn't have the capacity different at the state level. In fact, I believe that once it's decentralized and each individual state is doing it, I believe they'll be able to get better investors overseas. I think individual state is doing it. I believe they'll be able to get better investors overseas. PPP, private people, they get foreign investors. I think foreign investors shied away from coming into a federal structure. First of all, because they're a bit worried everything is controlled from Abuja. State that distribution don't get it, don't it, go out and seek partners service. One of will the standardized electricity is the cheapest in the world. There's a so a lot that once the state starts the money to subsidize market price for electricity, which means it may double or triple. So if we think band A is high now, we're in for a big surprise when the state begins to regulate, because it's likely to be much more.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jayo, for joining me this morning.
My pleasure always.
Yes, this is where we have to draw the cartoon. My name is Damlola Ogunshakin. Do what to like and follow us on all our social media.